Jason Grace is a character from the Heroes of Olympus and the Trials of Apollo. If you've been on my channel for quite a while now, then you'd know that I made a good amount of Jason-centric videos simply because I appreciated his character amidst the hate or dislike he usually garnered from the fandom. One of the main details of Jason's character is his relationships with two girls, his childhood best friend Reyna Ramirez-Arellano and his ex-girlfriend Piper McLean. In the books, it's implied that both girls could have been together with Jason romantically. On Reyna's side, she developed feelings for him, but we never really understood Jason's thoughts on this. On the other hand, Jason was looped into a romance with Piper because of Hera tampering with their memories and making them think that they were a couple. Because Jason's memories were erased, he had no idea about it, but he slowly grew to love Piper throughout the Heroes of Olympus. Piper was the same way until their breakup in the Burning Maze. With this fate brought in their relationship, I decided it would be interesting to analyze Jason's relationships with Piper and Reyna and see which was the better one and who did Jason really match well with romantically. So as expected, beware of spoilers for the Heroes of Olympus and the Trials of Apollo. And with that, let's get started. Let's start with Jason and Piper's relationship. If you want a more in-depth version of what I'll discuss, you can check out a separate video on that, which is linked down below. Anyway, Jason and Piper are one of the least loved Riordanverse pairings because of a lot of reasons, but they all stem from one thing: their weird beginning. Around the events before The Lost Hero or the first book of the Heroes of Olympus series, the Queen of the Gods Hera decided to execute her plan to handle the Prophecy of Seven. This prophecy foretold of 7 demigods who would one day defeat the Earth Goddess Gaia, and Jason and Piper were a part of that. Learning about this, Hera kidnapped Jason from the Roman Camp Jupiter and placed him with Greek demigods through Piper and Leo Valdez in a wilderness school for troubled kids. Through this, Hera wanted a Roman demigod, aka Jason, to get to know Greek demigods to unite the Romans and the Greeks against Gaia. To perfectly blend Jason into the school, Hera also manipulated Leo and Piper's memories about Jason. For Leo, Jason was his best friend, while Piper believed that Jason was her boyfriend. Jason, on the other hand, had no memories at all. He didn't even know himself in the first chapter of The Lost Hero, and he literally woke up in a bus with Piper and Leo. With this kind of situation, it's pretty understandable that Jason felt lost and pretty confused about what the hell is happening. The first implication of Jason's interest in Piper was because it was implied that he was her boyfriend, and he literally thought to himself, damn, if I had a girlfriend like her, I would definitely remember. Moving forward, Jason and Piper's relationship is far from smooth for a while. They do end up trusting each other and becoming friends, but there was this lingering tension between the two of them, as they both knew that Hera pretty much pushed them together in a romantic relationship, but the memories she gave them were fake. So the question was this: was there something real between the two of them without Hera's spell? It's a pretty tough scenario to be in, which is why it genuinely surprised me that they decided to start a relationship by the end of the book. To be fair, they did have a huge adventure to save Hera from giants and stop the world from ending, so they did bond, but it's kind of hard not to feel like Rick hit the time lapse and decided that they should get together. But moving forward, Jason and Piper's relationship was not touched upon in the Son of Neptune, and the next mention we ever get of it is in the Mark of Athena. There, things get a bit rocky. Although Jason and Piper officially established themselves as a stable enough couple, it was disrupted by Reyna when the 7 met up in Camp Jupiter. This is when things get complicated, because it's clear enough that Reyna has feelings for Jason, but Piper and Jason were already dating. What made matters worse was that Jason was oblivious to the tension between Piper and Reyna. Like, I'm telling you, he knew nothing, and it only dawned on him later that Reyna had feelings for him. Going back to Piper and Jason's relationship though, Piper was jealous of Reyna's past with Jason, and throughout the books, I noticed that she was the one who really wanted their relationship to work. Let me explain here. Based on the fake memories that Hera gave Piper, we see that Piper had a crush on Jason and tried to get him to notice her for a long time. Eventually, this fake memory Jason likes her back, and they shared their first kiss. However, as we know, none of these were actually real, but Piper did have feelings for Jason somehow, as she still clung to what Hera gave her. Because of this, all Piper wanted in The Lost Hero was to get Jason back somehow, and it's proven through the many moments where Piper was practically claiming that Jason was hers, even if they weren't even dating. I guess the best example to describe this was Piper's jealousy towards other girls who flirted or talked to Jason. In The Lost Hero, Piper was jealous when her half-sibling Drew Tanaka was flirting with Jason, and even had a face-off with her to get Drew away from Jason. In Piper's words, In case you think I'm not a true daughter of Aphrodite, don't even look at Jason Grace. He may not know it yet, but he's mine. If you even try to make a move, I will load you into a catapult and shoot you across Long Island Sound. Like, this is low-key a death threat to Drew, and Drew does back off. In the Demigod files, Jason and Piper came across Mr. D's nymphs, and one of them was giggling and talking to Jason. Piper was mad at this and got even more upset when she learned about Reyna and Jason's mysterious past later on. Through all of this, it's clear that Piper tries to take control of their relationship even before they started dating. I mean, threatening Drew is not a small thing, and moving forward, Piper gets jealous of other people who might take Jason's attention away from her. I think what makes it worse is Jason not noticing it as much, but he does recognize her behavior eventually. This was seen when he stopped himself from talking about Reyna in the House of Hades because he's aware of Piper's attitude. I went through thoughts about how people perceived Piper's behavior here, and they were pretty mixed. Some tried to defend Piper and say that she's a teenager in love and we should just give her a break because she's obviously going to be young and stupid at this age. But others were not having this and called Piper out for being obsessive of Jason. To be honest, I'm in the middle in this situation because when I was reading the books, I understood that they were all just teenagers trying to survive the end of the world, but Piper's constant jealousy was a bit concerning to me, especially since Jason, the constant oblivious guy, noticed it and tried his best to not bring it up. I've already mentioned earlier that Jason and Piper break up by the burning maze, and they claim that they did it because their relationship was built on a lie. Personally, I don't fully buy this excuse because it's clear in The Lost Hero that they both knew their initial memories of each other were fake, but they still decided to continue it and try to establish something real. So, clearly, they already knew this, but still continued. So I don't get why they would just stop one day and say, hey, it is actually really bad because it started from something fake. Like, their reason actually feels pretty fake? Okay, so what I'm trying to say is I don't buy it, and I think there were signs already in the books that they weren't going to last long. Like, hear me out on this. I think Piper being jealous easily was not just because of the fact that she and Jason are in a romantic relationship, so obviously she wouldn't like the idea that someone is trying to get in between that. Like, that's understandable, but I think the underlying reason for this behavior was because Piper didn't know that much about Jason. I mean, think about it. Ever since The Lost Hero, Jason doesn't know who he is or what is happening in his life. Although he does get his memory by the next book and the Mark of Athena, there's a lot of gaps that Jason is still trying to remember. It's hard for him to reference things easily compared to the other characters just because of what Hera put him through. I bet this is why Piper is a bit wary about who meets Jason. It's because she doesn't know that much about his past. Therefore, she doesn't know how he would act. I bet this is also why her jealousy for Reyna lingers to the House of Hades, because Piper doesn't know what Reyna and Jason went through together. So personally, I think that Jason and Piper broke up not because of the fake basis of their relationship, but because of Jason's identity crisis. Jason's identity crisis is an underrated fact that not many people see, and I'm not just talking about his whole issue of am I Roman or Greek that we got to see in the House of Hades. I'm talking about him not even able to understand who he really was even in his death. Think of it this way. We're talking about the guy who got kidnapped at 2 years old and trained by wolves to be a warrior. He was dictated by rules and orders, so this gives him no time to actually pause and think about himself. In The Blood of Olympus, Rick expands on Jason's character as someone who is rule-oriented and hesitant to make rash decisions because Jason clings to traditions based on how he was raised. It makes you realize that Jason was never given time to himself as he was constantly looped to quest after quest, and added with the amnesia issue, it's really hard for him to understand himself. And that's why Jason had the entire am I Roman or Greek issue in the House of Hades. He was genuinely trying to grasp who he was, and that's why he was pretty secretive to Piper about his past. He doesn't know how to explain it because he spent years not thinking about who he is that deeply. And I think Piper tried to push through this and make their relationship work. It explains why she was constantly trying to get Jason for herself, because she's worried that she might lose him in the mystery of his past. Ultimately, somewhere between the Blood of Olympus to the Burning Maze, Piper realized that both she and Jason were trying to figure out who they were separately, and that's why they broke up. So, that's my opinion. I'm not buying the entire, oh, our relationship was based on Hera messing with us and things changed. Like, no. I think there's something way deeper than that hiding beneath the surface that we overlooked in the Heroes of Olympus. Moving forward, let's finally go to Jason's relationship with Reyna. Like his relationship with Piper, Jason and Reyna are kind of ambiguous and left up for interpretation. One thing certain about their relationship, though, was Reyna's romantic feelings for Jason. Percy Jackson noticed it in The Son of Neptune when he first met Reyna, and it's something that even Annabeth Chase would go on to point out in The Mark of Athena. Reyna being in love with Jason is not understated. It's an integral part of her character because a lot of her motivations for helping the Greeks was not just because she wanted to prevent war, but because of what she felt for Jason. Reyna and Jason were childhood best friends, and Reyna eventually developed feelings for him. They were so close as friends, but I think there's a few lines in the book that best describes what Jason feels about her. This is from the House of Hades, and to give context, this is in Jason's dreams, and Reyna has been trying to get to the Argo II to get the Athena Parthenos and unite the two camps. The journey was practically hell, and Jason feels really guilty seeing her in his dream. So here are the lines. Upon seeing her, Jason felt an incredible pang of guilt. He let her believe they had a future together. He had never been in love with her, and he hadn't led her on exactly, but he also hadn't shut her down. He disappeared, leaving her to run the camp on her own. Okay, that hadn't exactly been Jason's idea, but still. Then, he had returned to Camp Jupiter with his new girlfriend Piper and a whole bunch of Greek friends in a warship. They'd fired on the Forum and run away, leaving Reyna with a war on her hands. So, it's clear as day. Jason did not feel anything romantic for Reyna and valued her as a friend instead, but Reyna obviously wanted something more than that. Actually, I'm analyzing it even further now, and I want to look back on Reyna's quote-unquote feelings for Jason. In The Tyrant's Tomb, the fourth book of the Trials of Apollo series, it's pretty much stated that Reyna was an asexual romantic. Rick Riordan even declared that in this tweet he made, and Reyna talks to Lester or Apollo about this after the attack on Camp Jupiter. Reyna admits that she always felt pressured to partner up with people because praetors like her normally did that for power or romance. Her options were Jason or Percy or even freaking Octavian himself. In her words, everybody was always trying to ship me with somebody. Thalia, Jason, Gwen, even Frank. Oh, you'd be perfect together. That's who you need. But I was never really sure if I wanted that or if I just felt like I was supposed to want it. People, well-meaning, would be like, oh, you poor thing. You deserve somebody in your life. Date him, date her, date whoever. Find your soulmate. And then, Reyna brings up something that is even more telling. But before that, let's get context. When Jason and Reyna were around 14, they went to Charleston and came across a ghost. Reyna ended up following it on her own, and it turned out to be Venus, the Roman goddess of love. Venus told Reyna that no demigod will heal her heart, and she would never find love where she wished. It's a brutal line to hear when you're 14, especially for Reyna, who was developing feelings for Jason. The fact that she would never find love crushed her, but after the events of the Tyrant's Tomb, she came to the realization that she didn't need romance. In her words, I saw how ridiculous I'd been, how ridiculous the whole situation was. That's what healed my heart. Being able to laugh at myself again, at my stupid ideas about destiny. That allowed me to break free, just like Frank broke free of his firewood. I don't need another person to heal my heart. I don't need a partner. At least not until and unless I'm ready on my own terms. I don't need to be force-shipped with anyone or wear anybody else's label. For the first time in my life, I feel like a weight has been lifted from my shoulders. It's clear that Reyna finally accepted Venus's prediction, and added with the fact that Jason clearly stated in the House of Hades that he never looked at Reyna as a romantic partner, it's actually a pretty good sign that they would not work as a couple. So ultimately, let's summarize this video. Jason and Piper's relationship is far from the perfect romance. They had a lot of rocky history, with Hera pushing them together romantically through fake memories, but they tried to make do with what they had and cared for one another. However, they ultimately broke up with an ambiguous reason of this fake basis of their relationship and how they wanted some time separately. Their relationship was marked with some challenges in trust, as seen whenever Piper got jealous of whoever was with Jason, and how hesitant Jason was to explain his past to Piper. This could have been part of the reason for their breakup, but ultimately, they still cared for one another until Jason's death. Jason's last act was literally sacrificing himself to save Piper, and Piper would go on to kill Medea in revenge for Jason's death. Although not the strongest relationship in fiction, Jason and Piper truly cared for one another, even if that wasn't in a romantic light. They trusted each other as allies or partners, and both sides were left broken from their breakup, especially with Jason's death. So moving on to Jason and Reyna, Jason had hinted in the House of Hades that he led Reyna believe that they had a future together, but that he hadn't led her on. But this is contradictory. Compared to Jason and Piper, Jason and Reyna had a more grounded friendship built on years of knowing each other. They were both raised in the same fashion that all Romans were, and were both leaders of Camp Jupiter. Both were skilled fighters who rose the ranks, and it's not far-fetched for Jason to believe that they had a future together. Reyna hints this to Perseus, the son of Neptune, and Jason acknowledges this 2 books later. But the issue is Jason not fully understanding what he felt for Reyna. In the House of Hades, Jason blatantly said that he was not in love with Reyna, but acknowledged that he's also at fault for the awkwardness of their relationship because he didn't exactly turn her down either, even when her feelings for him were so clear. So it's pretty sad that he never got to clarify what he actually felt for Reyna because of his death. He just kind of left her hanging forever. However, we do know now that Reyna felt at peace when she realized that she didn't need to give in to the pressure of partnering up with somebody because loving herself was enough for her. I guess that is also why she decided to join the Hunters by the end of the Tyrant's Tomb. This was her way of controlling her life and gaining the freedom she always wanted. So I would say that Jason and Reyna would not make a good couple despite the grounded friendship they had. It became an awkward relationship somehow because of Piper's relationship with Jason. But with both Jason and Reyna expressing a dislike for a romantic relationship between the 2 of them, I think it's safe to say that Jason and Reyna would not work out even if Piper was never in the picture. Friendship was a good enough relationship between the 2 of them in my opinion. So at this point, let's answer the question, who was the better choice for Jason? Personally, my choice shocked even me, but I think it's Piper. Hear me out on this. Reyna had a good relationship with Jason before Hera kidnapped him, and they could have had a future, but Jason clearly stated that he was never in love with Reyna. Pursuing a romantic relationship with Reyna wasn't in Jason's priorities compared to Reyna, and this mismatch in goals is already a red flag that it would not work. Plus, Reyna admitted she felt pressured to pursue a romantic relationship and even considered Jason to be one of the people she wanted to get with because of that pressure. Like, that alone is a major red flag. I mean, were Reyna's feelings for Jason even real, or was it because of what her camp expected of her? Reyna talks a lot about how much expectations as a praetor weighs her down, and it could be possible that what she felt for Jason was probably attraction and attachment because they were friends, but she mistook it for something romantic because people kept shipping her with Jason constantly. Reyna probably thought to herself, yeah, Jason's a good candidate, like, why not? Like, again, look at the line that Reyna tells Apollo. But I was never really sure if I wanted that, aka romantic relationships, or if I just felt like I was supposed to want it. So, Reyna isn't even sure of her feelings for Jason, and I have a huge hunch that her feelings for him were just manufactured by the pressure she experienced. Going back to my answer earlier, I chose Piper to be the best choice for Jason simply because Jason chose her. Although they had a rocky beginning and their relationship faced stress, they had a more concrete idea of romance compared to Jason and Reyna. Jason and Reyna were constantly trying to ignore or squash it down, while Jason and Piper tried to make it work. Even if they didn't in the end, it's still noteworthy that they were pretty much in love for a while amidst the stress of the adventures they faced in the Heroes of Olympus. They cared for one another so much. Piper showed Jason a different world from the strict rule he was under from Camp Jupiter. She taught him how to relax more and made him actually think of himself for once after years of rules and teaching in the Legion. Although this led to them parting ways to explore who they are separately, Piper gave Jason more growth compared to Reyna and declared that she loved him more than Reyna ever did. Jason also declares his love for her more than thinking of Reyna, to the point that he envisioned an actual future with her wherein they were old, married, and had grandkids. If that doesn't show how much they care for one another, like, I don't know what will. But ultimately, that's just my opinion. I think that Piper was the key to Jason exploring who he really was. Their relationship was not perfect, but it's real enough to realize that they did share love and care for one another. Reyna and Jason could have had that future they talked about if they were more confident in their feelings for each other, and that's what they lack compared to Piper and Jason, who actually tried their relationship. Ultimately, I think Jason should have been given more time to himself, but if you had to make me pick between his relationship with Piper or Reyna, based on who he would match well with romantically, I think that amidst all the problems they face, Jason and Piper was the better choice. So how about you? Which pairing do you like? Jason and Piper or Jason and Reyna? Let me know in the comments down below.